This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hello, feline friends. Welcome to Cattitude. I'm your show host, Michelle Fern, and I'm so excited to have you here. We have a great show. This guest today sent me an email, and she said, I'd like to be on your show. I have rescued 3,000 cats. And I thought, whoa, this woman speaks my language. Of course I have to have her on the show. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about it's not my favorite subject, but it's near and dear to my heart. TNR rescue, because of all the positive that comes with it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Take a bite out of your competition. Advertise your business with an ad in Pet Life Radio podcasts and radio shows. There is no other pet-related media that is as large and reaches more pet parents and pet lovers than Pet Life Radio. With over 7 million monthly listeners, Pet Life Radio podcasts are available on all major podcast platforms, and our live radio stream goes out to over 250 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, and other streaming apps. For more information on how you can advertise on the #1 pet podcast and radio network, visit PetLifeRadio.com/advertise today.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I'd like to welcome Amy Castro. She is the president and founder of the Starlight Rescue and has rescued over 3,000 cats. I'm not sure how many dogs or what else there is, but welcome to Cattitude.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So 3,000 cats. Let's first start with the question I think everybody has on their mind. How did you get started in this? And how in the world did you get up to 3,000 cats rescued, which is phenomenal?
Well, I got my start. I've always been an animal lover and just had never really gotten involved in rescue other than my own personal pets. And my city that I was living in at the time built its facility within walking distance from my house. So it was actually, I got my start in a municipal animal shelter. And at that point, I got very, very involved in fostering. And so I realized pretty quickly that there are limitations to what a city facility is going to be able to do for rescued animals. And that's why I decided to go ahead and start my own rescue. So the actual 3,000 number is really the personal fosters that I've done over the years. And I actually stopped counting. I had a list at one time, and I kept the list of every animal and all the names. And then it just got to be a lot. So I actually stopped counting a couple of years ago, about maybe 2 years into doing the rescue. So the number is probably higher, but now I have a lot more help. So that's always great.
Well, kudos to you for doing this and stepping up and even fostering. The whole process is a challenge. I've had people on the show that they were part of the trapping process and they're into, trapping. Do you go out and trap, or do you mostly have people bring cats that they find to you, or is it both?
It's a little bit of both. I probably think the vast majority of what we get are people who find animals, but we also take in animals that people have trapped as well. It's probably about an 80 to 80-20 ratio of just purely found animals that they're looking for help with, or their own pets that they can no longer care for, that we take in through Starlight Outreach and Rescue. And then we do try to help in the efforts of communities to do TNR, or trap, neuter, return, as well, because not all of the animals that get trapped, as you well know, being a cat person, they're not always necessarily suitable or able to adapt to living inside of a home. And so we basically will return them to the community that they came from to maintain the balance of the cat colony there, but not increase it, because we always make sure they're spayed and neutered before they go back.
Yes. And, in the beginning of the show, the reason I love TNR, the reason I don't like it means that there's cats out there that are going to be, possibly maimed, injured, harmed, who knows what. And so it's wonderful when I hear of organizations like yours that do what you do so that it reduces the amount of cats that are out there. So the amount of TNR, gets a little bit smaller. But I know that there'll always be people doing TNR. It's just impossible. And it depends, of course, the area that you're in and so forth.
Even in, here in Texas, so I live on 7 acres. I've got our rescue ranch here. And even when we've had cats that we've trapped and maybe we can't return them to whatever the community is for whatever reason, there still are some that just don't make it really well in a house environment, or they're not really 100% safe to be around human or other animals. And so we have them as barn cats. So it's kind of a balance of, they do have a certain level of safety and security. They're obviously well fed on a regular basis. But even with that, there's only so much space in the world for barn cats. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is that in rescue, there's so many animals that, that are coming in, and it's hard enough sometimes to find homes for the ones that are friendly, the ones that can be picked up, be held, and interact, as opposed to something that maybe is more feral or something that is super, super shy. It's a real struggle to try to find homes for those, because people like the lovey, cuddly ones for the most part.
Yes, they do. And mine all three have different personalities, and they all came to me. I wasn't even looking. Back then, I wasn't even a cat person. Dennis was abandoned, I'm pretty sure, because he knew the sound of a refrigerator, and he still likes that sound a lot. So I'm pretty sure he was abandoned. Molly was born on my doorstep, and Charlotte was with her mother, and she's still a little bit we say misunderstood. I had another guest on, so we call it misunderstood. She was on, kind of in the community for 4 months. So she functions in a household, but not really. She doesn't get along with the other 2 cats, and they've been living together 7 years. So I totally get that. Let's talk about barn cats, because I've heard of them, but not on a rescue site. And obviously, since you're in Texas, you have the space for it. What do barn cats do? I mean, it might be kind of obvious.
No, yeah.
Why would someone come to you and say, oh, yeah, I need a barn cat? And I guess they have barns or animals or a lot of rodents or something, but.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, we use the term, at least here in Texas. I can't speak to other places in the country, but I'm outside of Houston, Texas, and we use the term barn cat basically for a cat that's going to be living outdoors, but will be definitely provided with a shelter environment that they can live in, and obviously regular food and human interaction. Now, whether they choose to partake of that human interaction is a whole nother thing. I happen to right now have probably 6 barn cats, and some of them I refer to them as barn cats in waiting, because they will be adopted out. But then I've got some permanent residents that I've kind of gotten attached to. And they range everywhere from a cat that we have named Chubbles, who is a big, fat-headed orange tomcat, all kind of scrappy guy that has spent his life living outside. And he loves to be petted. I can pick him up. I can do what I need to with him. And then you have some on the other end of the extreme. One in particular that we named him Grey Worm, after the character of Game of Thrones, because he's solid gray and he's kind of long and lean. And he comes to eat, and I can, if I'm quick enough, I can get some flea medicine on him. But there's no way he would let me pick him up. If I pet him, I'll get one touch in, and then he's hissing at me and running away. So they kind of range from being more friendly to being really just feral cats. But what they basically do is they serve obviously a huge purpose in rodent population, keeping the rodent population down, because of those of us who do have true barns where I've got chicken feed out there, I've got horse feed out there. I don't need, rats and mice pooping in there. They also tend to keep other predators away to a certain degree, like raccoons and possums, which are a threat to chickens for those who raise chickens. And I happen to have some chickens. And so I think having the cats around just deters other critters from trying to get in and around our chicken coop. But the other thing with barn cats down here is that it's not always a barn like I have. It's not always a barn that houses animals. Sometimes people want quote unquote barn cats for keeping down the rodent population in warehouses or places where other products are stored. I have a couple of people that have chemical companies, not like toxic chemicals, but plastics and things like that. And they really don't want other critters getting into that, chewing on boxes, having their babies and, in the materials, and then, shipping them off to other parts of the country. So having those barn cats can help keep those places rodent free and free of bugs and lizards and snakes and things like that.
It's funny that you mentioned raccoons and possums, because two of my cats were community cats. Sammy would have been your typical barn cat. I had to hire somebody to trap her. I couldn't do it. I caught the baby daddy twice, Jethro, but not her. They've since gone on to the Rainbow Bridge for cats, but I live in an area that's definitely suburbs. And outside my window, you could see one night there was a raccoon, there was a possum, there was Sammy and Jethro, and they look like they're all ready to play cards.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they weren't deterring raccoons and possums in my area. But what do you do to make sure that the barn cats are going to places that they will be taken care of in some manner?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So we do a couple of things. Obviously, we do have people fill out applications in the same way that they fill out applications to adopt our pets for house cats. And we phrase questions in certain ways where it's not like obvious what the right answer is, because we want to get a real feel for, what their plans are with the animals. We do a site visit to make sure that the environment is as safe as possible. I mean, even with my own barn cats, if they venture too far from the barn and they don't come in at night, which we hope that they do, and they certainly have the opportunity to do that, they are definitely at risk of a variety of things, anything from being shot by somebody who thinks it's a predator on their property to being grabbed by a coyote or some other type of predators. We have coyotes, we have bobcats, and apparently we even have a cougar around here. So to a certain degree, it can be a little bit of survival of the fittest, but we do the best that we can to ensure that survival. We also, and I think this is something that might be relatively unique for us, but maybe not, we make sure that that person has a setup to get them started, because one of the important things about acclimating a barn cat, or sometimes they refer to them down here as working cats because it's not always a barn, is that you can't just take a cat and just toss it into your warehouse and expect that it necessarily is going to stick around and do the job you need it to do. So what we do is we take a cat tower over to the facility along with food and water that the animal's been eating. And we have them start off by keeping the cat in the tower for 10 to 14 days, switching out obviously providing food and water. And then we provide them, depending upon the animal, if it's quite a feral cat where it wouldn't be super safe to stick your hands in there too much, we provide them with a bunch of disposable cat litter boxes that they can switch out every other day so they don't have to worry about scooping. And we provide them enough for the 14 days. And then we give them a process. So the cat spends 10 to 14 days in the tower, being fed, knowing where its food and water is coming from, getting used to the noise or whatever the environment is like. And then we ask them from there to let the cat out of the tower, but to close the facility. And so it would be a matter of closing up the barn so the cat can't get in and out. Hopefully, not all of them are 100% able to be closed up. But usually after that 10 to 14 days of knowing where my meal is coming from, the cats are generally going to stick around. But, we expand it to the environment, and then it's more a matter of, opening the doors, so to speak, and allowing the cat to go beyond the actual building to do their rodent searching on the property. It's all going to depend on the environment where the cat's being released. And then we go and collect all of our equipment when they're done with it.
And what does the tower look like?
It is, I know it's about as tall as me, and I'm about 5'3". So it's about as tall as me. It's made of the same type of material as a wire dog crate. It's got shelves inside. It's got a floor on the bottom. it's not something you would want a cat living in forever, but it keeps them safe. It keeps them from running off in the beginning. And again, depending upon the environment, if it's sometimes people will just want it for their, like a workshop, and sometimes they're air conditioned and completely closed, but still mice and little critters get in. So in that situation, if it's something that you can actually close up and secure, then we usually have them take the cat out in just a couple of days so that they can kind of peruse the environment. But if it's something that can't be closed, like my barn, we can close the doors so that a coyote can't get in, but there's lots of places that cats could squeeze out. So we usually will have them in that cat tower. But it's about 5 foot by 4 foot by about 3 or 4 feet wide.
Kind of like a little wire house.
Yeah, it's basically like a wire house, like a cat version of a bird cage.
That's a good way to describe it. All right,
Yeah.
we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. CATTREETRAY.com.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking to Amy Castro. She is the president and founder of the Starlight Rescue. Okay, Amy, you rescue so many cats and dogs as well. And here's the question. How do you make it through kitten season? I know wasn't aware about puppy season. I know there's kitten season, and I know that there's a lot more kittens out there than there are puppies. But how do you make it through? Because it can be crazy.
It definitely can be crazy, and it varies from year to year. Sometimes it's kittens coming out of our ears, and sometimes it's like, hey, I wish somebody would bring us some kittens because we've got adopters looking for kittens. So a couple of things that we do, and I'm speaking specifically to how does our rescue make it through, because at the rescue ranch, it's myself, it's my daughter, Kelsey, and we are the primary. So any kittens or moms and kittens that we bring that come here, we have to care for. But then we also have an extended network of fosters. And so having fosters definitely allows us to accept more kittens from the community. Obviously, if we can get people to, if it's a trapping situation, if we can get people to trap the mom, and we get the mom and the kittens, that's a lot less care than, and this is some good advice for your listeners, is that so many times down here, people will make a presumption very quickly that kittens are abandoned and then snatch them up and want a rescue to take them. And number one, obviously that's not the best thing for the kittens. And number two, it's a tremendous burden on the rescue to have to feed kittens, a litter. We have a cat in our cattery right now that just gave birth to 6 kittens. If I had to bottle feed those around the clock, it would be quite the job. And I've done it before, and I've done it with multiple litters because they need to be fed every 2 hours around the clock in the first couple of weeks, and pottied and everything else, and monitored. So if we can get people to catch the moms or to keep the kittens with the moms, somebody has a cat that has given birth in their garage, rather than taking those kittens away right away, to leave them with the mom until they're about 4 weeks and close to eating food on their own, and then rescuing everybody and getting mom spayed at that point. That certainly helps with the survival the survival process on our end of getting through kitten season. And then there's a reason we call it Starlight Outreach and Rescue, because I feel like a huge portion of what we do is education. And so encouraging people, like if I see a Facebook post of somebody that says, I got my cat and I got a brother and sister and now they're getting older and I can't afford to get them spayed and neutered. That's one of the things that we help people do. So we don't create more litters. Or if somebody has a cat that has kittens, we'll reach out, not vilify them or criticize them for not getting their animals spayed, but simply ask, can we help you get your cat spayed so this doesn't happen again? And then, obviously we offer to help with those kittens, but trying to keep them with their original families, trying to keep moms and kittens together, and then obviously having an extended foster network of people who are willing to take in kittens until they're of adoptable age is basically what we do to survive kitten season.
Thank you for sharing all of that.
Sure.
I've heard this terminology. It was actually told to me by someone who does rescues, feeder breeder, where some people just feed a community cat and never try to get the cat fixed.
Yeah, that's, I've not heard that term before. That's interesting. I'm surprised I haven't. But yes, there are a lot of people who will feed because, it's a catch-22. The more you feed, the more they breed. And so you're not helping the situation by feeding those neighborhood cats and keeping them fat and happy and able to breed. At the same time, I think it's very hard for people when a kitty cat wanders up to your home meowing and looking hungry to not feed it. But what ends up happening is if you take the responsibility for feeding, and even from a legal standpoint in the state of Texas, most municipalities, if you feed that cat for more than 3 business days, it is legally your pet at that point, whether you let it in the house or whether you don't. And so it's your responsibility once you start feeding it to spay or neuter it so that it doesn't reproduce. But I think what happens is the feeding part's easy. The catching, especially if it is a feral cat, the catching it, the figuring out where to take it, the expense to spay and neuter it becomes a lot. But, for those out there who were saying, yeah, that's me, it's a lot to do it. But if you let that colony grow and now you've got 40 cats, imagine how much that's going to cost you to spay and neuter. And now you're a nuisance to the neighborhood and your neighbors are complaining and animal control is likely to come and round all those cats up. And that's a problem too. So it's really a nip in the bud kind of situation. As much as it can be a little bit expensive, it's better than what happens in the long run for sure.
Exactly. And actually where I live, it's not legal to leave food outside and just leave the food because especially in my area, it draws the raccoons.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are subject to, diseases for your pets. But I was a feeder breeder person because there was 2 cats that came along. I think there were 2 or 3. So, not really a community or a tiny one. And Sammy and then her baby daddy, Jethro, and her daughter, Charlotte. And they just came around. So I fed them. And then my spouse said, hey, I didn't know if it was a male or female. There's a way to tell by the tail if it's a question mark or something by their anal glands, but that's okay. So I didn't know if it was male or female. She started to get chubby and we thought maybe it's because she's eating well because she's a tiny cat or she was a tiny cat. Nope, pregnant. That's how Molly came out. 3 cats on my doorstep. Before I could catch her, again, I caught the baby daddy, couldn't catch her. I wasn't sure if Charlotte was old enough to be fixed. So I think I took Charlotte to get fixed. So then 2 of them were fixed, could not catch Sammy. And you're right. It is a challenge. It was a little expensive, but not that much. So there was only 2 of them. But I was at my wit's end with Sammy because before I could catch her, she had another litter.
I know. It's hard.
Right. It's like you're trying. And desperation, I think one of the local apps that like a neighborhood app, and he said, I need help. I can't catch this cat. And this woman had a friend that was actually it's an old Cattitude show. And so she actually had a drop trap like Roadrunner. And that's how she caught Sammy. And I was reluctant. I said, what's your success rate? Because she's so hard to catch. And she said, listen to me and do what I say. And I have a very good success rate. It was something like not to feed her that night, except for some simple, don't feed her in the morning, get this certain kind of cat food that's kind of smelly. And I guess is very alluring for the cats. And she caught her. And I was amazed because the other thing that with kittens is that they move at a very young age too. And when you're not living in, I'm in a city area, they're walking down your driveway, these little teeny things, and they're not going to have a good survival rate. But I'm happy to say all 6 were adopted out and she was fixed. But it definitely is a challenge when you're feeding them and you don't want to subject the cat to hunger, but then you have to do the other part. You have to get the cat caught or find someone that does TNR. Otherwise, the cycle just continues and continues. Here's a question for you. How many cats' lives do you think you have saved since you have been practicing TNR, fosters, getting all the cats fixed? How many lives do you think you saved?
Ooh, I know that for the rescue, our intake averages around 300 cats a year, and we've been in business that sounds terrible. We started the rescue. I founded the rescue in late 2017. So let's say that's 3,500 right there. And then as far as, I don't even have the numbers. It's probably been, I would guess, somewhere around 5,000 total. And now if you start multiplying, when we see some of those graphics, if you look online and how many cats can somebody have, it's probably millions when you look at the potential generation of babies that could have been born from those cats.
Right. That's what I was saying. I was almost going to go a billion. The best we can do is just everyone that's listening, just keep spreading the word and to get your cats fixed. And speaking of that, what would you suggest to someone that wants to get involved? Maybe they have one cat, or they don't feel that they spend enough time at home. Their business might be seasonal or school or what have you. And they want a cat, but they can't really dive right in and just adopt one. Or they just want to do some TNR or rescue work. Where would they start?
I think if you're really looking at, I want to be a lifesaver, contact your local animal control facility, your city facility, if you've got one, your county facility, because those tend to be the higher kill facilities in most communities for a variety of reasons that I won't get into. It's generally not their fault. It's the limitations of the system. And so, starting with them and finding out what types of programs they have available. What is their adoption program like? Or if you're not ready to adopt, what is their foster program like? What is the commitment? Like, one of the things that we do, and I think we do it well, is we want to keep our fosters around, and we don't want anybody to ever feel like, wow, Starlight Outreach and Rescue asked me to foster this cat for a week and I got stuck with it for a year. So we try to work with our fosters as to, what their availability is, what their level of commitment is, and then find the right fit foster for them. And then, sometimes it's not actually fostering. It might be getting involved in other ways, helping at adoption events or helping to clean cages, because that relieves somebody else from doing that job. And then they can be fostering or bottle feeding kittens or whatever it might be. There's so many different ways that people can get involved to help be part of the solution that don't necessarily involve a huge time commitment, but it really does vary depending upon the facility. So start with your local municipal facility. If they don't have any type of volunteer or fostering or TNR program that you can help with, then I would just do a Google search for animal rescues or cat rescues near me and see what comes up and reach out and find out what their programs are all about.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. And last question, because we're about to wrap it up.
Okay.
Well, second to last question, because I want you to share after this where people can find out about you and about Starlight Rescue. What is the record for the cat that has taken the longest amount of time to adopt, to find its forever home?
Well, the one that really jumps out at me is a cat named Astro. He started off at animal control, and he was probably there, 9 months to a year. And then when we started the rescue, we took him into the rescue program, and he was here for a long, long time. And his downside, he was a lovely cat. He was a pretty cat. He was a neat and tidy cat, but he was just so shy, super, super shy. It was probably a good year and a half. I know that there's other organizations out there that have had cats for years, but what's interesting about him, he was with us for a good year and a half. I had got in touch with a person that I had served in the Air Force with, who was probably living about 7 or 8 hours away from us, and just convinced her. She was looking for a cat, And there's always, if you work hard enough, you can find that special person that's willing to give a cat a chance that's shy like that. So long and the short of it is we met, halfway, which happened to be Dallas. We exchanged the cat. She took Astro, and it probably took him another 8 or 9 months before she was able to actually get him to come out and sit on the sofa with her and let her pet him. And, she kept him until the day that he died. But it takes that dedication of the people trying to find the homes and people that are willing to give an animal a chance and not give up after a weekend of the cat's been under the bed.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
So where can people find out more about you?
Well, we definitely have a website, and it's Starlight Outreach and Rescue.org, and the "and" is spelled out. And we're also on Facebook at Starlight Outreach and Rescue. So we're very, very active on Facebook. We do a lot of information and updates and things like that. So definitely check us out in those 2 places. Those would be the 2 best places.
I want to thank you so much for coming on Cattitude. This has been such a pleasure talking to you and learning more about rescue. So thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for all you do for all of those cats that you have saved over the years.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being able to spread the word to your listeners.
I hope everyone enjoyed this show. I love talking to Amy and learned a lot about TNR and what it takes to run a rescue. And I didn't even know there was such a thing as barn cats. So really great show. I want to thank Amy Castro from the Starlight Rescue for coming on Cattitude. Thanks to my cat crew that were all adopted, Molly and Charlotte and Dennis. And of course, thanks to the magic of Mark Winter, my producer, for making me and my guests sound amazing. And we would not be anything without everyone listening. So thank you so much for listening and tuning into Cattitude. Spread the word. TNR saves lives. And that's a big part of why I do what I do in Cattitude. We don't talk about TNR on every show. First of all, it wouldn't be fun to listen to. And, we have to talk about other stuff too. But, every little bit helps. So spread the word. Have people tune in. They can educate themselves about cats. And who knows, you might have another cat friend to play with your cat. So anyway, thank you for listening. And remember, lose the attitude. Have Cattitude.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.